A founder approached me about a problem. He said, I assign work to my engineers and it doesn't get done. I investigated and it turned out that he would give one task to the engineers and before it was done give a second task and before that was done give a third task and so on. I told him about prioritization and doing a sprint planning meeting and so on and he said, no Karthik, we are not into process. Process is bad, he said. In his mind, process was like junk food. Actually, process is like food. While junk food is bad, food is not bad when eaten in the right amount. If you undereat, it's bad. If you overeat, it's bad. But the right amount of food is good. Process is similar to that. It's not bad. The right amount of process for your company is good. You certainly should not have too much process, make it too bureaucratic and have engineers fill out a form before they can do any work. But many startups make the mistake of having too little process. So the opposite of process is not efficiency as he thought, it is chaos. It is disorganization. It is things not getting done. So have the right amount of process. And many startups, if anything, many startups make the mistake of having too little process. And they don't get results. Everything is messy, people are stressed, people are running around like headless chicken. Process is exactly what you need to solve it. Process, when you hear the word process, you shouldn't think bureaucracy. You should think doing things in an efficient way. If you are planning what to do, when to do, how to do it, that's process. If you are doing whatever comes to mind, however comes to mind, whenever you feel like it, that's lack of process. Even one person working alone needs a process. When I was in college, I built a virtual machine. And then I wanted to add some features to it. And some more. And then, after spending a lot of time building some features, I realized that didn't make sense. And then I realized that two features I built were contradictory. They would clash with each other. I could have feature A or I could have feature B, but it didn't make sense to have both A and B, which I realized after building A and B. And there's a third thing I built, which I realized is not doable by one person working alone. So then I said, let me not just code it up. I took a pen and paper and wrote down a plan. What do I want? And I had a numbered list. And some of those were clearly, they needed a team. So I crossed those out. And some of those I realized after writing didn't make sense. It was more like a daydream or something, right? Like if you are buying a car and if you say, oh, you know what, if the road is blocked, the car should fly above the traffic. Yeah, that's like a dumb requirement, and some of mine were like that, so I crossed them out. And then when I went through the list, I found that 4 and 5 were in contradiction. I could have 4 or 5, but not both. So I crossed out one. And then when I continued my development, things happened in a more organized manner. This is a lesson I learned in college, and you could say this is process. No, it's being organized. I mean, it is process, it's processed in a good way. It is not the bad kind of process which my founder friend assumed. So that is about process. And process should be brought in bottom up. It shouldn't be top down. One founder I know hired a guy from Microsoft who put in a lot of process and the engineers rebelled. Finally, the Microsoft VP was let go. People often, they think, okay, this is how it should be done. And in their mind, they have some processes. Typically, they didn't even re-examine the processes they have used in the past. For example, one startup founded by ex-Googlers follow Google processes like code review, whether or not they are relevant for a startup, because they didn't re-examine the process. Don't do that. A process should not be like part of your identity which doesn't change. A process is a tool. You're not going to pick a hammer and bang on something if what you need is a screwdriver, just because you have used a hammer in the past. So all of these processes in the past, from past jobs, should not be dragged into new jobs in an unthinking manner. Instead, what I do is I examine the problems companies have and then I try to evolve a process bottom up based on the company's needs. Not this is what I've used in the past, so let me throw it at you. But what are your problems? Okay, for this problem, this is a solution and the minimal amount of process. And of course, not everything is solvable by a process or should be solved by a process. Some are a question of culture. For example, if you say there are a minimum set of engineering rules we will follow, that's more like culture, right? Or actually, that's not a good example. A better example is an engineer should take responsibility for the work he has done. He shouldn't just launch it and say, okay, now let someone deal with it if it doesn't work, right? That's a culture. And of course, some things are a question of ethics. For example, don't lie to customers should not be part of your process as step 3A. It should be your ethics, it should be something you insist on doing or you refuse doing other way around. So, something should be a question of ethics, something should be a question of culture, and culture is just a decision that is codified into the DNA of the company. Sorry if I sound like a bullshitting consultant, but what I'm trying to say is there are certain things that we try to internalize. We say this is what we are going to do from now on. It's not a case by case basis, right? We don't do this because the rules say that you should do it. No, that would be process. Culture is more like this is what we need to do to succeed. This is what we always do. That is culture. So that is one more point. And the other thing to clarify about process is, the Agile Manifesto said it best. It said individuals and interactions above processes or something like that. And you should read the Agile Manifesto if you haven't. So the wisdom there is, process should not be used to disempower people. The manager of the branch at HDFC called me and said, sir, we need to meet you. Why? Because they say we have to meet our customers every quarter. I said, no, I don't have time for you, and I hung up. That is a process that disempowers people. He must have felt like a fool telling me that, and if not, he should. Right? Because he needed to make that call to me, whether he felt there's any value in it or not. So, process should not disempower people. You shouldn't have to do something just because the process says so. Process is an aid to people, right? And process should always be open to challenge. I'll give you an example of that. In FutureCam, my startup, we had a strict code review process. I would review all the commits. And then, of course, I asked my engineers to do that. Because me doing all the code reviews would not be scalable or the right thing. It also disempowers the people. Everyone should be empowered to review and approve. After a while, I noticed that it was not getting done. So I reminded them. Again, it was not done. Then I reminded them. Then in a team meeting, the third time I said angry, why is this not being done? I told you guys we agreed on it. Once we agree on it, we should do it. And should I remind you again and again? It was done a little bit, but not much. Then I thought, instead of crying myself hoarse, let me take a step back and see what happens. And then it turned out that the commits that were tricky were still getting code reviewed. The routine ones were not. The team had figured out a process that made more sense than what I had imposed. So, and we didn't have any outages. We didn't have any severe production issues. So they came up with a better process than me. So I adapted. I said, okay, great. And I left them alone because they are clearly kind of doing a better job than me in this case. So process should always be open to challenge. So when you say this is what we'll do, that's a starting point. It's not the end of the story. It's not that according to this you must do this. People should always be able to challenge and say, I don't see value in this. And these are some good ways of using process. If you'd like me to analyze the productivity of your team, identify bottlenecks and improve it, my consulting link is in the description. Thank you.